Hello and welcome to the WIHS Journal, Public Affairs from 104.9 FM. I'm Paul Kretschmer. My guest today is Dave Workman, the editor at gunmag.com, who will talk about the implications of the Second Amendment if it's changed after the election in the autumn.
I'm Dave Workman. I'm the editor-in-chief at thegunmag.com and communications director for the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms out in Bellevue, Washington.
Okay. I understand that the group has expanded its list of anti-gun businesses. How long has there been a list that noted firms like that with that attitude then?
Well, the list was published initially about 10 days ago, and last Friday it was updated with 4 new additions. There's just about 200 names of businesses and their CEOs on the list, and you can find that at the Citizens Committee's website at ccrkba.org. And it's quite an expansive list. Covers all kinds of people.
Is it fair to say that not only does it cover all kinds of people, but it's kind of a sample of across the entire country, and maybe even a range of businesses represented on that list by all those people?
Oh, sure. You know, we've got there's an airline on there, at least one that I know of, and some sporting goods stores, theaters, restaurants. It kind of runs the gamut. There, in fact, some of these businesses I've never heard of them, but they popped up on our initial search and for being either off limit to firearms in the businesses or for contributing to gun control organizations, or the CEOs have contributed money to gun control organizations. That's kind of how you wind up on the list, and this, as I say, it kind of runs the gamut. There's quite a cross section of businesses on there, so I think some of those places will surprise people. Others maybe not so much. You know, it depends on how surprised people can get. So.
It's gotten to the point now where I think the capacity for people to be surprised is becoming less and less all the time, either between what they see on social media or journalist organizations or whatever the case may be. People seem to be plugged in either inaccurately or accurately, as the case may be.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, I'm opening it up right now, and you've got what we've got is the program is called "Don't Feed the Gun Prohibitionists," and the idea here is not necessarily to boycott anybody. We're not suggesting that they be boycotted, but we are telling gun owners across the country that these businesses contribute something, either money or support, to businesses that are after restrictions on your Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. So it's more of an educational project than anything. And we name names. We explained who is involved in this thing. And I'm scrolling down the list right now. It goes everything from A to Z. There's an outfit called Zola, which I've never heard of, but the business or the CEO has contributed to a gun control cause, and we've got A&M Records, Alphabet Incorporated, Beeswax, Bank of America, Burger King is on this list. So it really does go down through quite a diverse list. And where you find this list, if you go to the Citizens Committee website, on the left-hand side, there's a column that's got a tan background. You go down to general interest, and the second click on that general interest is anti-gun businesses, and you can open that up and you can take a look and see who we've got listed there.
It occurs to me that the names of some firms may or may not be plain or clear as to what kind of business they're in, or how, or the name under which they do business. For instance, one of the names you just mentioned a moment ago is Alphabet Inc. They are the holding company for Google, and Google, of course, is a search engine, and it's also a browser through Chrome, and it's also.
I don't understand.
Oops, there's my phone right now misbehaving for me. Overheard us talking. So Alphabet Inc., for instance, has a very wide-ranging reach in a wide number of different areas. So potentially what they say may be the kind of company that could influence a lot of people if people are inclined to follow what they think they're telling them.
Well, yeah, and, we don't, it doesn't really matter, I think, who or what the company is. It just matters what they do or what they've done, and according to the people who put this list together, all the folks listed here, and then we've got verification that they contributed somehow to a gun control or a gun prohibition movement, and. This is not the first time something like this has happened, and every once in a while you look on Facebook or some other social medium, and you'll see where somebody has come on and they've named a company or a business or a theater, or they went to a restaurant and they've got a no guns allowed sign or a sign that says gun-free zone. And it's nonsense like that is kind of an affront, because really what it is social bigotry against people who may be licensed to carry, who may be gun owners. And I think what happened over the weekend out here in Issaquah, Washington, which is next door to Bellevue, Costco is on this list. And yesterday at about 6 a.m. in the morning, somebody drove a pickup truck, through the front door of the Costco place, ran in, fired some shots, smashed, I believe, a jewelry counter, stole a bunch of jewelry, and took off. Now, being a gun-free zone didn't seem to prevent that crime. And I'm going to be writing about that, because this is the kind of thing that people don't seem to be able to wrap their heads around, at least the anti-gun types. Mm-hmm. Signs and stickers on doors don't prevent crime. They don't discourage criminals. In fact, if anything, they encourage criminals, because anybody who sees that a business is a so-called gun-free zone, they're going to know that when they go in there to pull a robbery or something, nobody's going to be able to fight back. And it's a risk-free working environment for bad guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was reported just here in Connecticut today as we speak that it's been 10 years since a man went into a distributorship near Hartford, Connecticut, and shot and killed 8 people. But when they dug further into the man's background, he had a lot of serious problems, both within his own life and in his relationship with other people. And it was that was the cause of what he did, not the weapon per se that he carried. The weapon itself is neutral in the sense that a police officer can use one to protect himself and others, while at the same time the same sort of weapon can be used to commit a robbery. But it's not the gun's choice to decide which way that the user that holds it is going to use it. It's the humans that involved.
Well, yeah, a gun is simply a piece of metal. It's a piece of equipment. People have assaulted and even killed other people with baseball bats, claw hammers, ball peen hammers, pieces of lead pipe, knives. And one thing that has occurred to me as a journalist over the years is that the only time anybody talks about something violent is when a firearm is used. They talk about gun violence all the time. I see this in the newspapers, hear it on television news broadcasts all the time. And yet, stab somebody to death or beat him over the head with a club or a baseball bat, nobody ever calls that baseball bat or knife violence. It's always just, that was a murder. but it's the same thing. The person isn't any less dead. The poor victim of this thing. Just so happens that individual was either killed with something other than a firearm, and nobody seems to want to attach the instrument, whereas with firearms they want to demonize firearms, so they call it gun violence, and that's really not. It's not fair. It's not accurate reporting, I don't think. In fact, it's biased reporting. That's how bias creeps into the news.
Based upon the way the campaign of 2020 is developing, does any organizations that you're affiliated with have any concern that if the election goes one way rather than the other, that a severe clampdown on guns might occur?
Well, I think that's a given. I mean, after all, the whole country got a lesson this year in the state of Virginia. Virginia had been traditionally a split state, and Republicans had at least control of at least one house, either the Senate or the General Assembly. Ralph Northam, the governor down there, who is extremely anti-gun rights, had promised that if Democrats were able to take control in Virginia, down in Richmond, he would resurrect his gun control agenda. They would pass it, and it would become law. Well, unfortunately, last fall, they do their legislative elections in an off year. Only about 40% of the voters in Virginia voted, which I think is pathetic. And they allowed this to happen. They allowed the voters in Northern Virginia and in some of the liberal districts to elect all these anti-gun Democrats who ran on an anti-gun platform. So they got into power, and they passed almost the entire Northam gun control agenda. Now, that was just a taste of what could happen, according to the gun rights activists out there, if Nancy Pelosi and her party retain the House, and if Chuck Schumer and his party take over the United States Senate, and if Joe Biden becomes the next president of the United States. It would be 4 years of really bad news for the Second Amendment.
Got any possibility in your mind that a movement could be made for maybe one of the first times in history to actually repeal an amendment in order to get rid of what they say is the thing that bothers them the most about it?
Yeah. That could be a possibility. There are so many people in the gun control movement who advocate for repeal of the Second Amendment that it's hard to count them all. And there are even some members of Congress who have argued that over the years, that they want to repeal the Second Amendment. There's even been some legislation introduced over the last few decades to repeal the Second Amendment. The beauty of this country is that you need to ratify that by a majority of the states. I think it's 2/3 or 3/5 of all the states.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm not too sure that would float with all the states, because you're taking a chunk out of the Bill of Rights, which is it's sacred in this country.
Right. Well, thank you very much for spending some time with me this evening, sir. It's been a pleasure speaking with you and hearing what you had to say.
Well, you take good care of yourself, and don't forget to vote.
Will do, sir. Will do. Thank you.
Okay.
From gunmag.com, that was Dave Workman, the editor of the magazine online. For further information, call us at 860-346-1049. The opinions expressed are those of the participants, not necessarily those of the staff or management of the station. I'm Paul Kretschmer on the WIHS Journal, Public Affairs from 104.9 FM, WIHS.